Speed kills in the NFL, and the Kansas City Chiefs have a plethora of it. Again, what does that mean today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Nation. Nice to see ya. Let's get in it. Kingdom, Rogue Nation. I confuse those sometimes, but it's all the same because we are part of the bigger Chiefs fan base. Welcome into Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day on every platform, starting here on YouTube where you can like, sub, and hit the bell, going over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere you can get a show for free. You can get us 5 days a week plus. You can get that much more information on the text line at 816-357-8781. We're brought to you today by FanDuel. You can make every moment more because right now new customers are getting $150 back in bonus bets just for winning a $5 bet. That's $150 back just for winning a $5 bet at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Go there to get started. We're going to get started because as we tick up towards the season, it's about how do you attack the NFL this year versus last year and the year before that and 5 years ago, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a dynamic duo of speed on this roster right now. How do they come together and what does that look like? Are you correcting for what you've tried to do in the past? And what does this formula look like that's different than the last season? But bottom line, we start with the overall thing. The Chiefs use speed better than anybody else in this league, and they're getting back to doing what they are good at by bringing in not just Hollywood Brown and not just Xavier Worthy, but both of them. There are a couple of other pieces that could come in as upgrades as we go through this preseason process. But be assured, if you're not living in Miami, you're living as a fan of the team that wants to have the most speed on the field at any given time. And that, I think, is the winning formula that I'm glad to see them get back to.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think, when Hollywood Brown is on the roster and is able to run multiple different positions, and then you throw on Xavier Worthy at different times, and you still have other speed. Justin Watson isn't a speed demon, but he's fast enough. You have other guys that have a little bit of speed to him as well. And then you look at, bringing in Rashid Rice, who's a little bit slower, but gives them a different play style at wide receiver. All of that, putting it together, giving you that speed that can take the top off the defense, but can also help you win at the shorter and intermediate routes, because you could have one guy going deep, one guy looking like he's going to go deep and then break it off, which opens other things up, short and intermediate, and could open up the long too. Just depends. But having those guys on the field at the same time is going to be fun. But just having one of them on the field is going to be an improvement from what they've had the past couple of seasons.
It is. And there's different ways to go about this, right? Speed is what it is on the field in terms of miles per hour. That's the common, gold standard right now is in-game tracking. How your top speed is achieved, how often, et cetera, et cetera. As of now, outside of what is going to be a conversation coming up here in the next segment, if you don't have the guy that was your speed demon before, what's the next best thing that you can do? Well, it's this. If you don't have Tyreek Hill anymore, you might as well get Marques Brown because he has the most 20-mile-per-hour plus routes run since 2020. That is outstanding, being number two. It's more of a pack where you're at now. It's not the outlier that Tyreek Hill was, but it's definitely up there. And there's some other names on here that are going to feed into what we talk about coming up. But it comes back to that. If you can't have Tyreek Hill anymore, we know that there was an era, and that's gone now. What's next? And that is in the NFL, especially for a guy like Marques Brown, who wasn't able to test during the pre-draft phase, because that's the other gold standard that you can set, and we'll talk about the other aspect of that. This is, I think, a concerted effort to go back to the well of we need to be the best athlete in terms of speed on the field at any given time against anyone that we're facing.
And other than the Miami Dolphins, they probably will be. You look at Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill; those are going to be the two guys that are probably going to be the fastest combined between the two of them. Although Marques Brown brings up, brings an element of speed that didn't have a 40 time, an official 40 time, so that's a little bit different. And it's interesting because, some people leave him out when they talk about elite speed in the NFL, and he's still one of the fastest players in the NFL. But the nice thing about this, and the thing that I'm most excited about, obviously having the speed is going to be great, but it's bringing in a guy like Marques Brown, who has been efficient in the NFL. He hasn't been a star-studded playmaker, let's put it that way, but he's been efficient. He's been good. He's been a reliable receiver, and now he's going to be able to come in and show that side of the game to a guy like Xavier Worthy, who's coming in with even more speed than Brown has. That's important, and that's somewhere where I think you're going to get growth in the future.
I like the way you segued into that, because that's what people are going to say. But wait, there's a rookie in Baltimore. You're not going to have the fastest guy in the field, right? Because Nate Wickens ran 4.28. Well, Chiefs went out and made sure they got the one guy in this draft that was faster than him as well. So even at the rookie level, when other teams are adding speed to, the Chiefs are making sure that they double down. And having both of them together, we're going to talk about what they'll be like together later in the show. But like you said, even if you only have one on the field at a time, which may be the truth for the first half of the season, maybe through the bye week, maybe more, that gives you the option.
But when you look back at that sheet, can you bring that back up for just a second? The one that you just showed, the routes ran, because that shows you MVS is number 4. And I would just about guarantee you that most of those are coming from a situation of being in Kansas City. I'm not going to say he didn't get any in Green Bay, but a lot of those are coming from Kansas City. That shows you how much they're probably going to use it in the future in this offense. And you're looking at a guy in Brown who is second in the league in it, and you're bringing in a guy that's even faster than him that probably will be on this, I would imagine will be on this chart maybe in 2026 after 2 seasons. Even if you go back just 2 seasons, I expect Worthy is going to be having a lot of routes that are going to be 20+.
Yeah, I have to think you're absolutely right. And the opportunity of one creates opportunity for another. And I'm glad that you pointed out MVS. That's one of the things that people are going to say, well, this isn't a departure. This isn't anything new. Actually, it is. We're going to talk about what's different this year and correcting the past couple of seasons coming up next here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a huge win of your own. When it comes down to the playoffs, you want to get into the action when you have a good number to lay, right? The New York Rangers are minus 102 in this upcoming game. You might want to get yourself into the action for, because right now, new customers are getting $150 back just in bonus bets for winning a $5 bet. And so that money line happens to be one of them. You can also go for the spread. You can get into player props and much, much more. It's all available in one spot over at FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can make every single playoff shot count, whether it's hockey, whether it's NBA, whether it is the next season, the NFL, which is coming right around the corner. Every time we say it's not, it is. It's all there on FanDuel at America's #1 sportsbook. You can find 24/7 coverage, whether it's speed, whether it's the sports that you want to know about, over at Locked On Sports Today. It is here on YouTube and on Amazon Fire. If you don't want to listen to the big talking head shows and you want actual local coverage that's covered every single day by our folks, make sure you check that out at Locked On Sports Today here on the platform. Going back to building and correcting on past mistakes, I can't say that MVS was a true mistake, only because he afforded you the possibility of sticking with this formula of having elite speed, at least at one wide receiver. The problem was not the speed. I didn't feel like he had lost a step or that he was unable to stretch the field any longer. When given the opportunity, in given the opportunities is the stretch there, he was still able to run at a speed that was dominant over the vast majority of the league. The problem was he wasn't able to run routes well enough to get that initial break where he could use his speed to its utmost. He wasn't able to catch the ball consistently so that speed paid off. How many times did we see him alone in the end zone or near it where the ball is dropped? It's not about the speed in those aspects. It's about performing on top of being able to get open with that speed. So I still feel like that was a continuation of the philosophy. It just didn't work out with that player. Well,
and don't forget, I think another big thing that's really played into that is tracking. he wasn't able to track the ball. Like the ball could be thrown 2 or 3 yards inside where he was, and he would not track it, and it would look like the throw was way off. That's part of running your route. That's part of adjusting to where the ball is in the air and being able to track the ball and being in the right place at the right time. The QBs, you can go look at deep passing, and you can go look and see how many QBs look very accurate deep passing. A lot of that is how well the wide receivers can track the ball. I'm not going to say that there isn't deep accuracy issues around the NFL or people that are better at throwing deep balls than others. But when you look at the vast majority of it, it's a question of, can you put it in a place where a player can go get it versus can you hit him exactly where he needs to be hit? Because you're talking about 40 and 50-yard throws. You're not going to put it on the money every time. But if the receiver can adjust and learn to adjust, that's what makes the difference. And MVS never was able to do that. And that's really what I think hindered his ability to be successful in the system.
Agreed. And I think the reaction to that, I am truly loving at this point, where you're not happy just going out and getting a Hollywood so that you have a replacement for MVS in that aspect of being able to have that elite speed. But you go and double down and get another receiver so that you have a pair. And that duo could even be added to, we're going to talk about that coming up, but in correcting for last season, what you had in that situation, the tracking, et cetera, you have Xavier Worthy coming in as well. There's a list, and kudos to our buddy Marques Brown. You can check him out on the Cowboys Locked On show. Make sure you see that as well as all over the interwebs. Of the fastest guys in this league, it comes down to a couple of things. There's the on-field tracking, and then there's the actual testing for the young guys that are either rookies, second-year players, guys that have to rely on that 40 time to give you the comparison. And so when you look at it, the two fastest guys in this league are a former Chief in Tyreek Hill and a current Chief in Xavier Worthy. Now, yes, there's going to be all these questions about his performance as he jumps up into the professional ranks. But the difference is Xavier Worthy, the number one trait about him in college, going back to his sophomore season, was his ability to track over his head. And that is what's going to set him apart as that true elite threat. The Chiefs have two of the four fastest guys. It's also interesting that Tyreek and his crew over in Miami, Devin Achane in particular, are also a group that have the most speed. I would not call Jalen Waddle out of that race either. I don't think he's quite as explosive as Achane is. But when you look at it, the Chiefs are starting to overcorrect for last year by having a pair. And I think they can go even beyond that so they can compete with the elite speed teams like the Miami Dolphins.
Well, and like you said, I mean, we look at the MVS thing and his inability to track the ball, and that caused Kansas City issues in the past. You look at what Worthy was able to do in college. He shows the ability to track. But go back to Tyreek Hill when he was in Kansas City. One of the things that made him one of the best downfield threats was his ability to track the ball and his ability to shift up and shift down when he needed to adjust to a throw. And that was what made him such a great receiver at times. Was it looked like Mahomes was hitting him in stride every time. Part of that is on Hill being able to track the ball, seeing where it's going to be, dialing down when he needs to, and then getting to a point where he realizes, okay, now I can speed back up and accelerate into the catch, which is another different thing. All of this plays into having the ability to take deep shots is going to be fantastic for this offense, and I'm excited about that. But the most exciting thing about it is now with two of them, you look at being able to take the top off on both sides of the defense if you wanted to. You could take both of the safeties completely out of the play, and you still have a guy like Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce who can do things underneath that are, if you're limiting the safety play, that's going to be a problem for a lot of defenses.
Yeah, it leads to chunk plays that are beyond 8, but they're up to 25. If you're running deep coverage off, there's a lot of room underneath, and maybe that helps with the drop situation from guys like KT and Sky Moore as well. That space to breathe, I think it is a factor, especially for the younger players. So I think it all feeds into what you have to do with this duo. How do they look? What's the best usage? And could you even add something more to them? That's coming up next here on the Locked On Podcast Network.
As a golfer for years, I've been hearing PXG say, nobody makes golf clubs like they do, period. Do you know what? They're right. I actually went in for a fitting and I saw for myself. I went in and swung the PXG Black Ops driver, and it is a total game changer. You no longer have to sacrifice distance for forgiveness. The world-class team of PXG experts will analyze every aspect of your swing with every club and give you feedback in real time on how to improve. One of the coolest things about the PXG experience is being able to handle all the different types of clubs, seeing the different grips that they have, and having the one-on-one expertise walk you through how to swing, how to adjust your swing to be able to get better shots with every single club, not just the driver, but every single club. Seeing the simulator, being able to hit on that simulator, and being able to get an idea as to how that is going to turn out and how it changes your swing and how effective you can be on the golf course. It is a lot of fun. You need to go check this out. And if you're thinking about PXG's high-performance equipment is too expensive, their clubs often cost less than the so-called leading brands. PXG made me a believer. They'll do the same for every golfer in Kansas City. Visit pxg.com/LockedOnChiefs to schedule your fitting at PXG Kansas City, 7517 West 119th Street in Overland Park. Get fitted for any club and you'll get a dozen golf balls for free. That's pxg.com/LockedOnChiefs to schedule your fitting. pxg.com/LockedOnChiefs. Limit 1 dozen golf balls per person. Promotion ends June 30th. Other terms and conditions may apply. See the store for details.
You can get everything you need 24/7 on the Locked On Sports Today feed. Check it out here on YouTube or on Amazon Fire TV. Now, the question becomes, as we look at speed and what it does in this league, Chiefs have been there before. We've seen Tyreek Hill in this fresh era. They've also seen Deshaun Jackson play in this offense in its earlier versions back in Philly. It's always been a part of it. The duo aspect for me is what really makes this shine, because you can play speed off of speed. As you said, if somebody can throttle down, if you're running double verts and somebody can throttle down and come back to the ball, you're going to make a lot of easy receptions at that 20, 25-yard mark that gets Chiefs back to taking chunks. But there's more to it than that. This opens up the ability to run the screen game more effectively, to move Travis more effectively, to keep bodies off of Travis more effectively, which is what I'm excited about. The number one thing that I want this offense to do is to stack Hollywood and Xavier together on the same side of the ball in order to just blast the short zones out of the way. And you can run drags, you can run outs, you can run whatever you want, and there's going to be wide open spaces there, like it's, Wyoming in the 1800s.
Come on, go ahead and say the number 3 wide receiver that you want to bring in for the more, because then imagine those 3 together.
Well, that's what comes down to. There's been a lot of rumors, right? And I, for one, am not a huge proponent of this player when he came out. I think he's done a good job adjusting, and he's learned to do some different things than what we saw in his college film. But it's still out there. There's still no cap space in Seattle. And so when you take the fact that when you run down, the Chiefs already have 2 elite speed guys. And if you want to look at the top 3 that our buddy Marques did, the third person in that list that isn't either a current Chief or a former Chief is DK Metcalf that the Chiefs have already been linked to. If you were to add that body with that speed at 4.33 on top of the 4.21, on top of the 33 routes at 20 plus miles per hour, this is an offense that could not be stopped. In my opinion, you just can't do it unless you're playing safeties at 30 yards. And if so, Travis gets 1,500 yards, rides off into the sunset in the Hall of Fame, like before he's even eligible. There's no bad downside to trying to make this trade, in my opinion.
Well, and then just imagine putting Travis and DK on the same side with Xavier Worthy or Marques Brown and doing bubble screens. I mean, we talk about deep. I understand we're talking deep speed and we're talking all that, but part of what makes that so effective is you have the other things that you can do as well. It's you have the bubble screens. You have the ability to get those 2 big guys out there who defenses have to be worried about, and then throw the ball short to one of your speedier guys with 2 huge blockers in front of them out on the edge. I mean, there's lots of different ways you could go with that. If the Chiefs brought in DK, this already stacked offense would be absolutely ridiculous. And I do agree. I don't think it could be stopped, because you put those 3 guys on the field at the same time with Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco, good luck, because I don't know how you're stopping them. And then I know we're talking deep speed, but you put DK on the field with Travis Kelce and the other 2 tight ends and Pacheco, I still think that's a pretty decent threat. without the other speed on the field, just because you're looking at, they left 3 tight end sets. You can go all day with those guys. It's just, there's so many things you can do with just the players they have already with Worthy and with Brown, but adding a third piece in DK Metcalf would just good luck to
it's
the
a cheat code that we
because
haven't
Andy
seen
Reid
since
would be having
Tyreek,
fun.
right?
Yeah. And you have to think DK Metcalf has improved in the NFL, and he hasn't had a great quarterback to help him do it. Like Russell Wilson was okay when he was there, but he wasn't great. And now he would have Mahomes. That he would take DK to a whole new level, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have to agree. And then there's the fact that if you're trying to get insurance on KT or Sky or Justin Ross or Nico Remigio, Cole Hardman's still out there too. I mean, if we just want to go all 4-3 guys or better, that's a possibility that you could get 4 wideouts that are faster than any DB you have.
Okay, so I'll make an argument that DK would almost be insurance for Travis Kelce. Not because they're plug-and-play players, but because you would have the ability to do different things with that guy on the field that you couldn't do currently with the roster as it is. And that is going to give you the ability to you can't replace Travis Kelce. We've already said that. We've said that many times, and I'm not trying to replace him. I'm just saying you have to always worry about injury, especially after last year. You saw what happened when he was out in the first week of the season. So to me, getting a guy like DK Metcalf gives them a little bit more Kelce insurance, so to speak. I know Wiley is going to be somebody that they're going to count on. They're going to try to get into the offense, but getting a guy like DK gives you another option at wide receiver that would make not having Travis Kelce, if he got hurt for a game or two, not hurt as much as it would otherwise.
I completely agree. And, and then if you just wanted to ice the cake, you could talk McKinnon back out of retirement. I mean, the guy's got to be the running back spot that, I mean, if we're just going to the races every day, let's go. Let's bring it all. That's what I'm saying. You never know with Brett Veach. He could be working any number of things. I will not say, I know it's a long shot at this point, cap space not included, et cetera. But if you're going for this three-peat, I keep coming back to the fact that Brett Veach isn't scared to go out on a limb and take a risk, especially if it's worth grabbing a 3rd crown in a row. So that's why I bring it back up, and I do think that they're on track.
The other thing that bringing in a guy like DK would do, and I'm not even going to talk about McCole or McKinnon at this point, but another thing that DK would do is it gives you another way to protect your offensive line. And what I mean by that is, yes, DK's got great speed, but you're going to have the ability to have quicker passes by more players and somebody that can get open, and you can throw it on a body, and you've got a very large body that you'd be throwing it to with DK Metcalf, which will help your offensive line at times as well. So to me, it's a win-win-win.
I like the concept. And all this goes to show that the guy who's can't be relied on to have greater and greater speed as he's hitting his age. He's going to slow down a little bit more this year than he was last year. Is anything you can do to protect and give an alternate way to attack from Travis Kelce, protects Travis for the longevity, for the playoff run, for the Super Bowl, etc., and overall for his Hall of Fame status.
Yeah, which we've seen he can still take over even with his injury and lack of not lack of speed, but losing a step, I guess I would say.
Absolutely. It's speed, folks. Does it make you happy? Do you want to see them at it? What is your prognostication for how they use this speed? Put it in the comments here on YouTube. Throw it in the reviews on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, that is, or Spotify. We are here every day this week for you. Chiefs are in on OTAs. We're going to have Matt Derrick on to give us the lowdown once they've been able to observe a practice. We're going to have more for you coming up tomorrow. Make sure that you like, sub, and hit the bell here on YouTube. For Chris Clark over at Chiefs Corner, and for me over at NFL 33 and RGR Football, thanks for being with us today. We very much appreciate it. Have a great day, and we will talk to you